Spine-chilling encounters, a driver's terrifying journey into haunted suburban secrets revealed. Emily's heart raced as she drove into the darkened streets of Willow Creek, the emptiness around her pressing down like a weight. The street lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that twisted and turned, shaping grotesque outlines from her peripheral vision. She had always found comfort in the suburbs' quiet routines, but tonight was different. Beneath the calm surface lay something sinister, lurking just beyond the edge of her perception. When she picked up her first fare, an elderly man with sunken cheeks and trembling hands, something in his weary eyes sent a chill down her spine. "I'm Mr. Lawson," he said, his voice ragged yet calm. As he sank into the back seat, he began a tale that chilled her to the bone, recounting how the beloved mayor of Willow Creek had vanished one stormy night, never to be found. "They say he haunts these streets," he whispered, waiting for the next glowing heart to take. Emily's grip tightened on the steering wheel. She shook the dread off, focusing on the road ahead, but the scratches on her leather seat caught her eye, cold evidence of something primal that may have scratched out in desperation. Outside, shadows danced in the corners of her vision, whispering of danger she desperately wanted to ignore. Just as fear began to settle in her gut, her second fare climbed into the back seat. "You have to help me. The mayor's ghost is following me," the frantic high schooler shouted, his breaths quick and shallow. Emily's watchful instincts kicked in. His words felt absurd, but a visceral fear twisted her stomach. "What do you mean? Why would he be after you?" she asked, half listening and half fearing for her sanity. Kyle's eyes bulged with terror. "He punishes those with lost hope. I can't lose hope. You can't let him get me." His panic hit her like a cold wave, resonating with an undeniable dread that overtook her rational thoughts. All night she drove from one haunted corner of Willow Creek to the next, each experience drawing her deeper into a waking nightmare. Friends revealed hidden lies behind their friendly facades, neighbors she thought she knew morphed into figures cloaked in secrets. As shadows stretched down darkened streets, Emily felt a cold shiver tracing her spine. What if the stories were real? What if the town she loved hid something monstrous beneath its surface? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Suddenly, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. It was a distress call from Lucas. Panic surged through her. "Mom?" His voice trembled like a fragile leaf in the wind. "Someone's here." "I don't know who." Emily's heart dropped. The voice on the line echoed a sinister familiarity, straight from Mr. Lawson's haunting tales. Shadows loomed in her rearview mirror, but they were more than just tricks of her mind. They were real. She could feel it tightening around them, an impending doom edging closer with each passing second. The night pressed on, closing in around her, as she realized she might not be alone behind the wheel. Terror clutched at her throat, squeezing the breath from her lungs as she prepared to race toward home, steering into the unknown. What awaited her in the haunted darkness? Would the ghostly specter of the past claim her too? The shadow shifted once again, and somewhere deep inside, Emily understood the truth: this drive was just beginning. The call faded, taking with it the last remnants of comfort that Emily clung to. The unease that set in when Mr. Lawson spoke now transformed into a choking desperation, squeezing her chest. What if the mayor's ghost truly haunted these streets? What if he had chosen her son as his next target? Her foot slammed on the accelerator, the engine roared in response, propelling the car forward. The streetlights flickered like dying stars, illuminating the road ahead only to drown it in darkness again. Each shadow felt like a reminder of what lay just out of sight: something deadly, something ancient. "Lucas!" She shouted into the phone, but the only reply was static, a ghostly void chilling her to the bone. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes on her, stalking her through the streets of Willow Creek. Panic broke through the murky fog of her thoughts, and with each passing house, the familiar sights morphed into twisted figures, mocking her. As she sped past the remnants of the town, the library where she used to sit with Lucas reading, the park where their laughter once rang like bells, each landmark twisted into a memory tinged with dread. A cold sweat trickled down her spine. The mayor's ghost. It seemed impossible, utterly ludicrous. Yet, deep down, that familiar whisper crept in, begging her to believe the stories. Suddenly, a figure darted at the edge of her headlights. Emily swerved instinctively, heart pounding. The tires screeched as she brought the car under control. What was that? She gasped, glancing in the rearview. The figure vanished into the shadows, but Emily could feel the presence. It lingered, a tenacious spirit refusing to let go. Desperation flooded her veins like ice as she calculated her options. Home was still miles away, but she couldn't abandon Lucas. Her instincts kicked in, guiding her toward the direction of his school. Maybe he is still there, she thought, the idea a lifeline tossed into a turbulent sea. With a firm resolve, Emily turned onto an old road, one she hadn't used in years. This route was darker, more overgrown, an echo of a forgotten path. Hollow whispers breathed through the trees, rattling the branches above her like warning bells. In that moment, the casual suburban facade evaporated, revealing a raw, untamed fear lurking just below the surface. A sudden flash caught her eye, a flicker of something in the shadows. She grasped the steering wheel tighter, peering into the dark. An abandoned swing set swayed gently in the wind, creaking like stubborn memories refusing to fade. Her breath quickened. It felt wrong, a pulse of dread brewing in her gut. The mayor had vanished near here. Had he been drawn to places like this, where lost whispers mingled with the restless? Lucas! She screamed again, willing him to hear her, to know she was close. But only silence replied. Then, out of nowhere, a figure walked into the headlights, arms outstretched. Emily slammed on the brakes, heart racing, nearly sending the car into a spin. Help me! The voice was familiar, hauntingly so. Please no! The word escaped her lips like a scream, more instinct than thought, but it wasn't just any figure. It was Lucas, his face pale, eyes wide with fear, shaking in the cold night air. She didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief. Panic surged again. Lucas, get in! She yelled, desperation shaping every word. Just as he reached for the door handle, a shadow fell across them, a suffocating presence that rippled through the air. Emily's heart stopped as the temperature dropped, and a ghostly figure emerged from the darkness behind her son, its features cloaked in chilling shadows. No! She gasped, realization crashing in. The mayor's ghost wasn't just a story, it had manifested, and it was hungry. What would she have to sacrifice to save her son from its wrath? Emily's heart thudded louder than the engine, each beat mingling with the rising dread in her throat. Lucas, get in the car! She shouted again, her voice drenched in fear. The air crackled, heavy with the weight of something unnatural, and the figure behind her son took a step forward, revealing itself. It was the mayor, or what remained of him, a horror carved into the night, his eyes hollow but fiery, as if every bit of life had been drained, leaving only a vessel of malice. He belongs to me, his voice echoed, a gravelly hiss that slipped through the window, wrapping around Emily like chains. No! No! Emily screamed, her mind a tumult of terror and disbelief. She reached desperately for Lucas, who stood paralyzed in the headlight's glow, a marionette with cut strings. Lucas, come on! With a sudden jolt, the unnatural stillness shattered as the mayor lunged. Emily's instincts took over. She yanked the door open, but Lucas hesitated, caught between the twisted reality of his mother's fear and the ghost's grasping influence. A flicker of recognition passed through his eyes, but it was crushed by the mayor's sinister hold. I can give you everything, the specter cooed, his voice dripping temptation. Power, freedom, endless joy. Emily's skin crawled. She couldn't let that seductive poison seep into Lucas's mind. Lucas! Look at me! Focus on my voice! She cried, gripping her son's arm, wrestling against the invisible hold that bore down on him, but as she spoke, the air thickened. The shadows around them darkened, twisting and writhing like serpents hungry for the light. From the corners of her vision, she could see more forms coalescing in the distance, visions of the past, souls swallowed whole by the mayor's lust for control, now doomed to linger like wisps of smoke. Join me, Lucas, the mayor beckoned, extending a skeletal hand that shimmered with ethereal light. Together, we can rule this forgotten town. I can make you great. No! He is not yours. Emily shouted, the words clawing their way out of her throat. She felt a pull, an urge to flee. Her instincts screamed at her to escape, to save Lucas from this nightmare. But backing away felt impossible. The presence was a tangible weight compressing the air, keeping her trapped in a hell of indecision. Lucas, please. Her voice cracked, and she saw a flicker of understanding ignite in her son's eyes. She reached for him again, ready to drag him away from the brink. Just then, the mayoress ghost charged forward with a furious snarl, teeth bared in a ghastly grin. The rhythmic ticking of Emily's clock in the car echoed loudly, counting down seconds like the beat of a war drum. She pivoted quickly, looking for anything, any way to save Lucas, to sever the bond between mother and ghost that threatened to consume them both. Then, in that moment of utter chaos, Emily noticed the glowing object clipped to Lucas's belt, a simple flashlight, faint but enduring, illuminating a small circle in the oppressive gloom. Hope flickered like a candle in the wind. Lucas! Use the flashlight! Shine it at him! He blinked, the mayoress whispering, urging him to stay, confusion flashing across his face. A second too long passed. It felt like an eternity. Now! Emily screamed, sheer panic propelling her words. With shaking hands, Lucas grasped the flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness as he turned it toward the mayor. Light pierced the shadowy figure, making it recoil. The moment was electric, an unsustained spark in the hollow night. Emily watched breathlessly, praying the glow would banish the terror threatening to consume them both, but as the light grew brighter, a sinister chill enveloped Lucas's frame, pulling him closer to the shadow's grasp. Sweat trickling down his temples, he struggled against the tide of darkness. Lucas! Don't let go! You can fight it! Emily urged, every word a lifeline in a stormy sea. What would happen when the light met the dark? Would it lead them to safety, or drag them deeper into the unknown? The flashlight beam struck the mayor hard, illuminating the horror of his gnarled features, but it wasn't enough. The air crackled, and Emily could feel a cold draft sweep around them, carrying whispers from the dead. The moments stretched, limbs frozen beneath the weight of fear. Fight it, Lucas! Emily yelled again, her voice trembling but steady, desperate to break through the fog of darkness that threatened to drown them. Each second was a battle, the shadows clawing at her sanity. Lucas gulped, his breath rapid and shallow. The light trembled in his grip, wavering, matching the doubt in his heart. Mom, I can't. It's too strong. No. You can. You're stronger than it. Emily's heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her veins as she pushed the words outward. Remember the summer? The bonfire? You said the flames would always protect us. Her words pierced through the haze. Lucas's eyes flickered with something he remembered. A deep breath steadied him, and the flashlight beam steadied too. The glow sliced through the gloom, and the mayor's features twisted in rage, his form seething, struggling against the light. Your memories, they mean nothing. The mayor hissed, twisting his skeletal hand back towards Lucas. I will have you shut up. Lucas shouted, newfound determination igniting his spirit. With a surge of defiance, he tilted the flashlight, the beam intensifying, forcing the darkness to shrink back. But just as victory seemed within reach, the shadows erupted around them. The darkness twisted, contorting into a wave that surged toward Lucas, fingers of night reaching out, trying to snatch the boy back to the dark. Emily lunged forward, grabbing hold of the flashlight along with Lucas. Together, they became a lighthouse in a sea of despair. Although strength surged within her, it felt like pushing against an avalanche. Keep shining, Lucas. Focus on the light. The mayor shrieked, a chilling sound that seemed to echo from the depths of hell, but the force behind it faltered as the light expanded. Emily felt the warmth spreading, pushing back against the encroaching abyss. Gritting her teeth, she leaned into the beam, her skin aglow as it mingled with the brightness, but then, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble that built into a sinister roar. Memories of the town's history flashed in Emily's mind, faces contorted in fear as they screamed, silently caught, trapped, unable to escape. Were they warning her, or was the town itself awakening? No! This can't happen! She shouted, panic writing her voice. I want to let him take me. Lucas cried, a young man finding his fighting spirit within the terror closing in. He held the flashlight steady, pushing back against the darkness. Suddenly, a piercing wail echoed, a myriad of tortured spirits rising. They burst into the cold night air, mixing with swirling shadows around the mayor. In that moment, she felt the full weight of the souls trapped by the mayor's cursed ambition. They wanted out, to be free, as much as she wanted her son back. The flashlight flickered, then surged brighter, a beacon in the abyss. "Lucas, we need to push harder," Emily yelled, her voice raw with urgency. But what would happen when the light erupted fully? Would they be free, or merely ignite the wrath of the shadows? Just then, the darkness pulsed, shifting and swelling, a mindless force hungry to reclaim its prize. The mayor lunged again, desperate, a masterpiece of horror in motion. "Lucas!" Emily screamed as the figure spiraled closer, darkness clawing for both their souls. And in a final act of rebellion, Lucas stepped forward, foot planted firmly against the malevolence, his heart pounding as he shouted, "You don't own us. We are not yours." The flashlight exploded with light, sending a shockwave that radiated outward. But with it, the air grew thick, electrified with the fraught tension of the moment. Emily held her breath, eyes wide, as the shadows seemed to ripple, to twist and writhe. What would this ripple of light do to the darkness? Would it be enough to break the curse, or would it summon something far worse from the depths of despair? The explosion of light fused with a piercing silence. Time seemed to pause as the shadows recoiled, bending and swirling as if caught in a gale. Emily clutched Lucas's arm, her heart hammering. Was this it? Were they finally free? But then they saw it, the darkness, alive and raging, folding back into itself like a blackened flower in the sunlight. The mayor's face contorted with fury, his gnarled features now left exposed, like a raw wound. A low growl rumbled through him, blending with the whispers of the tormented souls, creating a chorus of despair that throbbed in Emily's ears. "What's happening?" Lucas stammered, the flashlight quivering in his grip. The mayor's eyes flared, glowing with an otherworldly intensity. "This light? It will not save you," he bellowed, his mouth stretching into a ghastly grin that felt like a promise of something sinister. "I will drag you into my world." Emily's mind raced. "Lucas, don't let him get to you. Remember what we talked about, stay strong." But even as she spoke, a crack spread across the ground beneath them, snaking outward like a dark omen. The earth groaned, releasing a foul, rotten odor, the stench of decay and despair. The flashlight flickered again. "No. Please." Lucas begged, his voice strained as he fought to keep the beam steady. They could hear the muffled cries of those trapped, swirling around them like a cyclone of dread. Faces flashed before Emily's eyes, friends, neighbors, people from the town long gone. Each one seemed to reach out, begging for release, their voices merging into a cacophony that filled her head, drowning out the terror of the moment. "Mom!" Lucas shouted suddenly, pulling her back to reality. "We're losing it." Fear clawed at Emily's chest. "Hold on, Lucas. We need to push through this together." Then, a chilling laugh echoed from the mayor, sending a shiver down Emily's spine. "You think you can shine your pathetic light against the darkness? I have claimed this town for too long. You are nothing but candles in a storm." With desperate determination, Emily dug deep into her resolve. "No. We are more than that. We are hope. We are the fire." She yelled, her voice slicing through the fear like a knife. With those words, the flashlight blazed again, pulsating with fresh energy that pushed back the dark wave now rushing toward them. But then silence. The air thickened, charged with a pulse she could feel in her throat. Shadows twisted violently, their forms stretching and reshaping, limbs sprouting with unnatural cadence. Emily looked around, panic rising. "This isn't working." "We need to." A figure emerged from the black, darting right at them. An apparition, a woman in tattered, ghostly clothing, eyes wide and hollow. She reached for Lucas, her scream piercing the night. The moment felt suspended, a fragile thread of hope trembling dangerously close to snapping. "Lucas, behind you!" Emily shouted, her voice shrill as she swung the flashlight, sending waves of light piercing the apparition. The woman vanished with a gurgled cry, but Emily felt the chill linger in the air. What if they're all still trapped? Lucas's voice trembled. He seemed to shrink away from the shadows encroaching at the sides, but the light still flickered valiantly, pushing back the tide of blackness. "We have to save them," Emily cried, the urge rising within her like an undying flame. "They deserve freedom." As they held the beam steady, another darkness broke away. From within, more spirits swirled. Confusion, rage, and sadness poured forth in a maelstrom of ethereal screams. It felt as though the very night quaked in their presence, and Emily knew this was more than a fight for life. It was a battle for souls, but what lay beyond the light? A quick glance at Lucas revealed fear mingled with courage. Would making the sacrifice for the lost townspeople mean losing themselves in the process? "Do we push further?" Lucas whispered, eyes wide, caught between dread and determination. Before Emily could respond, the pillar of light dimmed slightly, shadows licking at its edges. "What are you willing to sacrifice?" The mayor's voice slithered through the air, echoing with a chilling finality. Caught in a maelstrom of shadows and flickering light, they were left teetering on the edge. Would they step into the void to save the lost, or retreat into the comfort of their surviving light? The very air around them hummed with chilling anticipation, prophecy dripping from the mayor's lips, and Emily knew the decision would mean everything. "This is just the beginning," the mayor intoned, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. And just then, the light flickered again, as if sensing their uncertainty. Would they abandon the fight or risk it all to plunge deeper into the shadowy unknown? The shadows writhed, eager and relentless. They seemed like fingers clawing at the edges of the light, pulling it inward, trying to snuff it out. Emily's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the urgent whispers of the trapped souls swirling around them. She felt every gust of wind weigh heavy with despair. "Lucas," she breathed, gripping his hand tighter, "we have to keep moving." But Lucas stood frozen, flashlight trembling as he took in the chaos erupting around them. His eyes darted between the throbbing darkness and the fleeting figures of the tortured. Fear distorted his youthful features, his mouth opening and closing without words, as if trying to catch a breath he couldn't find. "They're all lost. What if we can't save them?" His voice cracked, slicing the air like a painful reminder of their grim reality. Emily glanced at him, fear lacing her own thoughts. If they retreated now, they might never get another chance. But if they moved forward, would it lead them to freedom or a deeper abyss? With a determined shove of her heart, she shouted, "We can't think like that. We need to focus. The more we resist, the stronger he becomes." The mayor's laughter echoed mockingly, a sound that clawed at her sanity. "Ah, sweet girl. You don't truly believe you can save them, do you? They're mine to keep." The accusation hung in the chilling air, his confidence fueling their dread. Tearing her gaze from the mayor's smug face, Emily directed the flashlight forward. The beam cut through the encroaching darkness, illuminating a path strewn with spectral hands reaching out in desperation, faces twisted in silent screams. A deep howl permeated the air, reverberating off the walls of the darkness. Emily and Lucas flinched, instinctively drawing closer together. This was no mere fight, it was a war with something ancient, lurking, and vicious. "The light!" Lucas yelled suddenly, strength returning to his voice as a surge of defiance filled his chest. "It's fading. We need to focus our energy." Emily squeezed his hand, nodding fervently. "If we can just hold it steady, we can push them back." But the mayor lunged forward, shadows rippling around him like a ravenous sea. "You think you can just resist? I will tear apart your hopes and feed on your despair." A cluster of spirits coalesced beside them, faces now clear with sorrow so palpable it felt like ice crawling against her skin. Eyes wide and filled with a mix of yearning and desperation, each one silently begged for help. Panic surged again. Emily felt the threads of courage beginning to fray. What if they sacrificed themselves for souls left in darkness? "Emily!" Lucas's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "Do you see that?" Light flashed at the edge of their vision. A glimmer, flickering in the distance like a lighthouse through a storm. For a heartbeat, hope spiked in Emily's chest. "If we can get there, there might be a way out." Without a second thought, she pulled Lucas closer, pushing back the suffocating darkness with each desperate step. "Be careful," he warned, shadows leaping closer, like an ever-hungry maw, but as they ran, the ground cracked violently beneath them, spitting out the stagnant soil filled with memories of anguish. Puffs of rancid air swept up around their ankles, choking and disorienting. "Do you feel that?" Lucas gasped, stumbling slightly but finding his footing again. "It's like it's alive." "It is!" Emily cried out, heart racing. "We need to drive it back. Fight it." As they drew near, another shadowy figure lunged, this one thicker, more defined. It crashed against the light like an oak splintering under a hammer. They braced against the force, clutching the flashlight tighter as it flickered dangerously behind them. The mayor's laughter echoed, twisted with rage. "You cannot escape. You belong here now, just like the rest." Glancing back, Emily's heart sank. The darkness rippled behind them, spreading like ink in water, swallowing any remnants of light. It surged forward, anticipation thrumming through its edges, a predator drawing closer. "Lucas! We have to make a choice." Her words came out in a desperate rush, teetering between fear and hope. They stood at a crossroads. The light they held was faltering, ready to extinguish a single spark in an ocean of shadow. "Push harder!" Lucas shouted, eyes alight with determination, yet filled with fear of what lay ahead. But as they pressed forward, the ground beneath them tore open, revealing a gaping maw that rushed with dark tendrils of smoke, threatening to consume them both. "Emily!" Lucas screamed, straining against the pull of the netherworld, and with every ounce of will, they had to decide: would they risk everything plummeting into the void to save the needed souls, or would they retreat and try to save themselves? They could hear the mayor's ghastly taunts echoing in their ears, each phrase wrapping around them like chains. "Sacrifice or save yourselves. The choice is yours." And in that electrified moment, everything hung in tension. What would they choose when the shadows threatened to overtake all they held dear? The darkness dragged at them, a living entity, clawing at their resolve. Emily's heart pounded like a war drum, the sound resonating in her ears, drowning out the eerie whispers of the shadows surrounding them. Lucas's grip tightened, his knuckles white as he stared into the abyss, fear painted across his face. "Emily, we can't." His voice trembled, edged with panic. "We'll be lost like the others. Not if we keep moving," she urged, glancing at the glimmer in the distance that flickered like a dying star. "That light, it's our only chance." Every step toward the light met resistance, as if the ground itself conspired against them. With each footfall, tendrils of darkness lashed at their legs, urging them to turn back. Emily cringed as a cold hand brushed her ankle, sending a shiver surging up her spine. "Push it away!" she yelled, voice raw. Lucas raised the flashlight high, its beam flickering violently. "It's too strong," he shouted back, panic rising. The laughter of the mayor danced around them like a mocking wind. "They're all mine. Every last soul. You can't save them, you can't even save yourselves." Emily gritted her teeth, pouring her energy into the light, willing it to shine brighter. "Focus. We have to be united. Together, we can fight this." But as they surged forward, another shadow lunged, dark and formless, yet somehow familiar. It was a face she recognized. Her heart sank, one of the lost souls. "Emily," it whispered, the voice echoing with anguish. "Help us know." Emily shouted, shaking her head. They couldn't let themselves be distracted. But the figure was closer now, its hands reaching out, pulling on her very essence. "Lucas! Don't look!" She turned, grabbing his arm to drag him away. "I can't, I have to help them," he cried, eyes locked on the figure. In that moment of hesitation, the shadows thickened around them, snaking around Lucas, tugging at him like a riptide. "Emily," Lucas gasped, struggling against the pull. "I can feel them. They need us. Then we save them," she screamed, "but we can't give ourselves up. Fight with me." As they ran, the ground split, dark chasms opening beneath them like a gaping mouth. Thunder roared, the air thick with tension as if the very world surrounding them was alive and hungry. Suddenly, the flashlight dimmed further, the beam barely illuminating their path. Emily could feel the energy draining. She clenched her jaw, heart hammering faster. "No! We can't let it go out. The shadows closed in, thick as fog, darkening their surroundings, laughing and whispering in a cacophony of despair. "You'll never escape. You will fail." With every ounce of strength, Emily shouted, "Together! We're not alone!" She focused, pouring all her energy into the light, feeling Lucas join her, the connection buzzing between them, a lifeline in the consuming darkness. The flashlight flared, momentarily pushing back the shadows, revealing a grotesque network of faces writhing just beyond the light. Emily recognized the fear in their ice-trapped souls begging for release. Then a palpable weight tugged at Emily, as if each tortured voice wrapped a thread around her heart, begging for help. Lucas's eyes were wide, reflecting the horrors they witnessed. "Emily! Above us!" he screamed, pointing as a shadowed figure cascaded from the ceiling, a thick, tar-like essence descending rapidly. Time slowed as Emily turned, adrenaline surging through her veins. The mayor's face materialized from the darkness, twisted in malevolent glee, a cruel smile splitting his grotesque features. "You think you can challenge me? This is where you belong." Instinctively, Emily raised the flashlight, willpower surging through her. "Get back!" she hollered, and the light somehow surged, illuminating the room like a beacon in a tempest. The mayor faltered, a momentary shadow of doubt crossing his sinister smile. But it was fleeting. "Foolish children!" he roared, darkness swirling around him like a storm. "You think that mere light can banish me? Maybe not you," Lucas shouted, "but it can free them." And with that declaration, Emily and Lucas pushed forward, crashing against the darkness, their light illuminating the endless despair that surrounded them. But as they neared the edge of the light, the floor trembled, cracking wide once more. Emily felt the ground give way beneath her feet, the familiar pull of the void threatening to swallow them whole. "Hold on!" she screamed as they teetered on the precipice. With both arms stretched, the shadows clawed at them, fingers yearning for flesh. "Emily!" Lucas cried, terror clawing at his voice as he fought to keep them upright, and then a flash. A scream. The light flickered one last time as they were pulled in two directions, one into the engulfing dark, the other toward the flickering hope. "Lucas!" she yelled, the world around her blurring. In that excruciating moment, the horizon of darkness surged around them, ready to swallow their very essence. They had come to the edge of sacrifice. And then silence. What lay beyond the abyss was yet to be seen, but as shadows surged around, breathing their dread, Emily and Lucas had to choose: would they leap into the unknown, or could they somehow push back against the ceaseless dark? And in that pivotal moment, a ghostly voice filled the silence, whispering from the depths of the void, "Your choice will seal your fate." What awaited them in that swirling darkness? Emily felt the tug of the abyss like a weight on her chest, pulling her down into a chasm of despair. She reached for Lucas, terror echoing through her. "Hold on!" But the shadows, relentless and hungry, pulled at her, whispering sinister promises of release. "Join us, Emily, become one with the darkness." Lucas's grip slipped on her fingertips. His eyes widened in fear, stretching into a desperate plea. "Emily! I can't hold on!" he screamed above the rising wails of the lost souls that filled the air, a cacophony of anguish that could tear at anyone's resolve. The desperation clawed at Emily's insides, igniting her will to fight. "Fight, Lucas! Remember our promise!" She squeezed his hand tighter, refusing to yield to the shadows. With every ounce of strength, she pulled, pulling against the darkness, pulling for Lucas. Suddenly, a surge of warmth rushed through her, igniting the flashlight momentarily. The light burst forth like an explosion, illuminating the faces surrounding them, lost, tortured souls tangled in darkness. Each expression told a story of horror, begging for help, pulling them deeper into the abyss. "Look away!" Emily roared, yanking Lucas with all her might. They stumbled back as the shadows shrieked, clawing. She could feel the energy of the light pulse like a heartbeat, but it began to flicker again, and fear clenched at her throat. "Emily!" Lucas gasped, catching his breath as they landed hard against the cracked ground. The light dimmed again, flickering with each heartbeat, a dying star in a vast void. "It's not strong enough!" she cried, panic clutching her heart. "We need to find a way out. Together!" Lucas insisted, his expression a mix of fear and determination. Their hands locked together, they huddled closer, eyes darting around, searching for any sign of escape amid the swirling darkness. It was then that a whispering wind surged around them, swirling in a cyclone of despair. You can't escape. There is no exit. You belong to me. The mayoress' voice echoed, dark and sinister, while the shadows twisted closer, like snakes whispering vile secrets. Emily could see the blackened figure of the mayor materializing in front of them, eyes burning with frenzy. He raised a hand, and the shadows thickened, reaching like tendrils for their flesh. Submit to the darkness. You will find peace in darkness, but something inside Emily screamed against that notion. She felt a flicker of hope igniting within her, remnants of strength and resolve. No. We won't surrender. She yelled, channeling everything into the flashlight. Focus on the light. Lucas encouraged, his hands gripping hers tightly. As they willed the flashlight to shine, a blinding light erupted, pushing the shadows back. Faces turned away, wailing in pain under the brilliance, but the mayor stood unfazed, grinning malevolently. You think you can resist? You're out of time. His form began to expand, dark energy pulsating violently. The ground shook as fissures opened, and the air thickened with terror. Emily and Lucas teetered precariously, struggling to maintain their footing. The mayoress' laughter echoed louder, drowned out only by the frantic beating of their hearts. Emily! We have to choose now. Lucas shouted, desperation evident in his voice as the shadows moved closer. Suddenly the light flickered once more, plunging them into stifling darkness. Panic rose within Emily, breathing fast, her mind racing. Yet through the chaos, a strange clarity emerged, a realization of what lay ahead. Leap! She shouted suddenly, unable to suppress the urgency of her voice. We can't run forever. We have to face him. But a chilling doubt crept in. What if the leap led them to an even darker fate? Just trust me, Lucas. We can beat him. As they readied themselves, a shudder raced through the ground, portending doom. What will you choose, my dear children? The mayor taunted, the shadows swirling around him as if alive, their whispers growing louder by the second. The choice loomed before them, an abyss of despair and uncertainty. Would they leap toward the void? Or could they transform the courage in their hearts into the light that could shatter the encroaching darkness? Together! Emily shouted, spirit ignited, but the shadows surged, swallowing her words whole as they prepared to leap into the unknown. In that climactic moment, a thundering crash split the air, sending a jolt through Emily and Lucas. And then, against all odds, they leaped into the swirling chaos as the abyss beckoned, but a demonic grin touched the mayoress' face. Your choice has sealed your fate. Now face the true horror. What nightmare awaited them when they landed? Would their courage illuminate the darkness, or would it consume them whole? The moment they leaped, the world around Emily and Lucas twisted and folded, time unraveling like a frayed thread. They plunged into the darkness, screaming, still holding on to each other. The shadows twisted around them, cold fingers reaching for their throats, pulling them deeper into the void of their fears. When their feet finally hit ground, they stumbled forward. The air was heavy, thick with grime and a stale, earthy scent. Emily blinked, trying to gain her bearings. They were no longer near the mayor but in a dimly lit hallway, the walls oozing with murky slime. Flickering lights buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows that lurked like predators waiting to strike. Where are we? She whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. Lucas's grip on her hand tightened as he scanned the surroundings. They were trapped in an ancient structure, the decay blending with the remnants of the lives that once thrived there. Suddenly, the buzzing lights flickered more violently, and distant thumping echoed down the hallway. Unease prickled at the back of Emily's neck. We need to go, she urged, her heart pounding. Which way? Lucas asked, glancing back toward the inky blackness from which they'd come. The hesitation in his voice mirrored her own quandary. Before she could answer, a door creaked open at the end of the hall. The darkness pooled in the doorway, an insatiable void calling them closer. Emily felt an ancient fear coiling in her stomach. She knew they shouldn't go toward it, yet curiosity twisted her thoughts. It was as if a magnetic force pulled her towards the threshold. Emily, Lucas murmured, his eyes wide. We shouldn't. The door swung wide, revealing a room flooded with crimson light. Inside, Figures danced, friends, enemies, strangers, all lost souls entwined in a grotesque masquerade of agony and ecstasy. Their faces twisted and contorted, mouths moving in silent screams that drowned the air with despair. Emily recoiled. "We can't go in there." But the shadows behind them seemed sentient now, writhing and pushing them closer. Emily felt her breath quicken, a sense of dread wrapping around her like a serpent. "Don't look away!" Lucas shouted, pulling her back as tendrils of darkness reached out, like greedy hands yearning for the light within them. "We'll end up like them." Panic clawed at Emily's throat. She stumbled backward, away from the doorway, desperately seeking an escape. "We have to find another way." "Wait." Lucas's voice, sharp and urgent, spun her around. "Look." He pointed to the far wall. A faded mural depicted people fleeing a shadowy figure, their faces twisted in terror. Among them, a child reached out, fingers stretched in search of salvation. The sight struck Emily hard. "That's us, we can't become them," she gasped, realization dawning. "We have to leave this place," Lucas said, but their opening was fading, the shadows shifting like sentinels guarding the door. Emily's heart pounded as the mayor's laughter echoed once more, ricocheting around the room. "You think you can escape? You will be part of my collection, another shadow in my domain." The sinister voice sliced through the air like ice, sending chills coursing down Emily's spine. They were running out of time. "This way!" she screamed, darting down the hallway, pulling Lucas along, adrenaline fueling their flight. The sense of despair behind them thickened, an almost palpable force trying to claw them back, but as they raced toward another door at the opposite side, a wind whipped through the corridor, extinguishing the flickering lights. Darkness engulfed them once again, a shroud of imminent doom. "Emily! Don't stop!" Lucas shouted as shadows whirled around them, dark fingers grazing their skin. They were on the brink of being swallowed whole. Just when they thought they couldn't push any further, a blinding light erupted from Emily's pocket, the flashlight. It burst into life, illuminating the path ahead. "Grab it!" Lucas yelled, reaching for it even as he fought to keep the shadows at bay. The warmth radiated out, pushing back the encroaching darkness for a moment, but Emily knew it wouldn't last. "Run!" she screamed, knowing that the fears they carried were only the beginning. The door came closer, but as they reached for it, it slammed shut with a resounding bang. A sinister giggle filled the air, mocking their desperate attempts. "Do you really think you can outrun what you've unleashed?" the mayor's voice hissed. Emily turned, finding her voice lost amid the chaos. One last pounding wave of darkness surged toward them, and she could almost hear the soul scream her name. Would their hidden strength be enough to break through? Or would they be lost forever in this nightmare? Before she could contemplate their fate, the walls trembled violently, suggesting the room might collapse around them. "Emily, we don't have much time." The shadows craved their fear. Would they fall into despair or find the strength to shatter the darkness once and for all? In that moment of tension, Emily made her choice. "Together!" she shouted again, hoping the light would guide them even as the shadows threatened to engulf them. But would unity be enough to escape the mayor's grasp? The shadows lunged at Emily and Lucas, swirling in a tempest of despair. Emily felt the weight of the looming darkness above them, whispers rising in a cacophony of anger and fear. Her heart pounded harder, matching the rhythm of their frantic breaths as they raced through an abyss where hope seemed a flickering bulb ready to burn out. "Together!" she yelled again, her voice rising above the tumult. In that moment, she sensed their shared strength, the indomitable bond forged through terror, through struggle. Lucas nodded, determination flooding his expression. They had come too far to give in now. With one last push, they swung the flashlight toward the encroaching shadows, willing it to shine brighter. The light flared, illuminating the grotesque faces of the trapped souls around them, their mouths whispering gasps, desperate pleas that twisted Emily's heart. "Hold on!" Lucas shouted as they sprinted toward a slab of stone seemingly untouched by the darkness. The ground heaved beneath them, splitting again in further cracks that beckoned them to fall into the bottomless void below. Emily glanced back as the mayor appeared once more, his eyes glowing with malicious satisfaction. "You think you can escape me? You will forever be a part of my realm." he growled, rage swirling around him like smoke. No! Emily cried out, the sound raw, infused with a parental fury. We won, be yours. With every ounce of love she felt for Lucas, she drove forward. The flashlight in Lucas' hand pulsed with energy, casting a brilliant beam that pushed against the encroaching dark. A flicker of something, a memory? A single face among the flailing spirits caught her eye. A woman she recognized from the town, once vibrant and kind, now caught in the mayoress' grip, torn between worlds. We can't let this continue. Emily shouted, emboldened by the connection. In that moment of heartache, the fog began to clear. The light from the flashlight pulsed with hope, a heartbeat of courage. Lucas, we're not just fighting for us, she said, locking eyes with him, the truth glimmering behind her words. We're fighting for every person lost to fear. We must set them free. He didn't hesitate this time. He raised the flashlight high, steeling himself as they surged toward the heart of the darkness that enshrouded them. Their feet echoed against the wall, and every surge of light they directed fought back against the shadows that clawed for their feet. Together! They shouted in unison, clasping each other's hands as they charged toward the abyss. The moment they reached the threshold, the ground beneath them rumbled, and the oppressive blackness surged forward, a cacophony of shrieks filling the air. Energy coursed through them as the flashlight ignited fiercely, casting brilliant light into the depths where despair reigned. Shadows recoiled, wavering before them. Now! Emily yelled, lunging them both forward. We can do this! The flashlight became a beacon, illuminating the lost souls' faces, young and old, caught in a web of despair, their eyes filled with hope. Emily's heart swelled with determination as she charged into the darkness. The souls around them began to step forward, moving toward the light instinctively, as if it were the very air they needed to breathe. Break the cycle! Lucas shouted, each word a powerful chant resonating against the calamity. A burgeoning wave swept forward as the lost became unchained, moving toward the light's embrace. Moments felt stretched like elastic bands, pulling tight. The mayoress' screams intertwined with the cries of the newly freed souls, an orchestra of anguish as shadows burst, flickering like stars against the night sky. The faces of the lost drifted around them, illuminating the darkness for the first time in ages. Keep going! We're winning! Emily shouted as the shadows trembled, collapsing inward. They raced, hands intertwined, feeling the warmth of the souls that joined their charge. Together, they were powerful. Then, with one final surge, the flashlight erupted into brilliant light, redistributing hope, igniting the embers of life. Long lost. The shadows shattered, splintering into nothingness, revealing the lingering echoes of what the mayor had once confined. And oh. The mayor howled as his form bent backwards, face contorted in rage and disbelief, before dissolving into an echoing wail that faded into the infinite, stolen into the very void he had wielded. The world shifted, sunlight breaking through the structure's decay, as Emily and Lucas fell to the ground, blinking away shadows. They breathed heavily, lungs filling with warmth. No more darkness loomed. Emily looked around, wide-eyed at the space devoid of fear. Where the specter of sorrow had once haunted, laughter and hope surged forth. Emily tightened her grip on Lucas. We did it, she whispered, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. We really did it. Lucas smiled, the fear in his eyes now replaced with a flicker of triumph. We fought for them and won. The memories of the town flickered in her mind, peaceful images of friends and families returning to their homes, relieved and free. In that very moment, they understood the true weight of their actions. With the sun rising higher, casting aside the remnants of night, the townspeople of Willow Creek would now reclaim their stolen moments and rewrite the darkness into a brighter tomorrow. Emily and Lucas stood hand in hand, destinies no longer tethered to the shadows. As they walked home together, their hearts full, a sacred oath lingered between them, to keep the light alive, to remember even amidst ordinary days that hope was a flame that could never be extinguished. The end of one terror became the dawn of many new stories to tell. And now, if you want to keep the momentum going, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, it makes a huge difference, and flood the comments section below with your thoughts and theories about this incredible conclusion. Lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic finale. This is your chance to show support. Don't wait even one more second.